name's Wayne, I am the Lone Cybertronian, and welcome to my new channel. I've wanted to do this channel for quite a long time, as Transformers is one of my biggest hobbies, and I have quite a significant collection of figures, and I feel that I just want to put my own spin on some of the figures, as I watch some reviewers and they don't pick out some of the details that I connect with. So I figure I can give my my own little angle on this. I hope you enjoy this. This is my first video. One thing I did want to say is that with these videos I won't be doing the transformations. I know a lot of people watch the videos for the transformations. I won't be focusing on that. I'll be focusing on the figures themselves in robot and alt modes, and picking out what I like and don't like about them. And to start off my channel here, we're going to do a figure that turned up just today, that I only ordered a few days ago, and that is Transformers Kingdom Core Class Hot Rod. Now, I'm not a big fan of Hot Rod at the best of times. He's got Bumblebee syndrome for me, which I think he's not as badly overplayed, but he's everywhere. He seems to be like the ramming it down your throat. Oh, this is the hero kind of thing, as the Bayverse films tend to do. So I'm usually not a big fan of Hot Rod and the toys. However, I thought I'd pick this one up because I do like a balance on my shelves, and with Core Class I had 3 Decepticons and only 2 Autobots, so I figured I'd pick this guy up to balance the ranks somewhat. But do I think he's actually any good as a figure, even though I don't particularly like the character? Let's find out. So here we have Hot Rod in his robot mode, and I must admit, as soon as I pulled him out of the packaging, I thought that's a nice looking Hot Rod, as much as you can do. All details are present and correct. You've got the flame chest with the Autobot insignia, you've got the wrist mounted exhaust pipe / blasters. The only thing lacking is possibly a couple of paint apps. With you can just about see the wrist. Although they look like thrusters, but whatever they are, they're usually, I believe they're usually orange, and the hands are usually a different colour as well, so maybe a couple of missing paint apps, but generally speaking, he is a very nice looking guy. He's got a good looking face, with a slight smirky smile, which I've got no problems with at all, and overall, he's really quite nice looking. His back point here, the spoiler does actually come off, which really surprised me, and you can actually mount it in one of his hands as like a large crossbow weapon. It has a barrel as well, which is compatible with various odds and ends. I imagine the blast effects might work with it, although I've not tried it myself. Sorry, that post there will fit into his hand. Straighten him out. It worked earlier. There we go. And there you go, it does actually fit into his hand, forming a rather large looking crossbow, and I'm wondering if that's a hark back to the animated Rodimus, which had obviously the double barreled crossbow weapon. Or you can just leave it in the back, which is fine. It's not necessary to come off for transformation or anything like that, so I'm actually quite surprised it comes off. So if you want to use it in that capacity, you can do. It does come with this rather unusual looking sword. I'm not sure if this is actually based on anything. I don't think it was based on anything from the Kingdom cartoon, not that I can remember. Obviously Rodimus comes with a sword as well, so I was a little bit surprised to see him come with this, but it's not a bad looking accessory. They are doing something at the moment which is kind of narking me with these weapons. Megatron and Optimus Prime are guilty of this as well, and they're double posting the weapons here. So as you can see, you've got like a thicker handle here, and then the thinner one at the bottom. Now, obviously what this means is that the bigger figures can then use this sword, but as a result, it means that when Hot Rod here holds it, his hand is way above the hilt. It doesn't look quite so bad on Hot Rod here, I can cope with that. But on Optimus Prime especially, it looks absolutely ludicrous with his gun so far in the air. It's so strange. But we're not talking about Optimus, we're talking about Hot Rod. And like I said, I think he's quite nice looking. Just give you a quick side and back view. You can clearly see the front of the car mode there with the engine block on the backs of the heels. And there he is. You can use that. Let's have a look. I did think you could use some points on here for weapon storage, but I'm not actually sure that you can. But regardless, there he is, our little hot rod. He's reasonably poseable as well. He's got a ball joint shoulder. That one's particularly stiff on mine. Ball joint shoulders there. Ball joints there on the elbows, even though he seems to have really diddy forearms, but it does mean he gets a nice pose on his sword, which is quite impressive. Our head does swivel, and he's got plenty of movement in the old thighs and the knees. No ankle tilt or anything like that though, because obviously such a small figure, I wouldn't expect it. But yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with that hot rod, and I'm going to will be very pleased to display him on my shelf alongside the others. So, let's see what happens when we convert him to vehicle mode. And as if by magic, there is Hot Rod in his vehicle mode. I must admit, I do quite like the transform. It's a little bit different from anything that Hot Rod usually has, with this section coming over here and then the upper legs here folding back. That's the underside, so we've got the false front on there. And I must admit, he's quite a nice looking little hot rod. One thing I did notice is that he does actually look like a smaller version, somewhat, of the Rodimus figure. Now, Rodimus without his trailer, he does actually look a little bit like a hot rod style truck. Like the back section's quite chunky. So it just looks like, you know, a kind of sporty looking truck. And this iteration of Hot Rod seems to follow a similar suit. Like the back looks quite big. And he is quite narrow, this version. He doesn't look as wide as I expect Hot Rod to be. But yeah, overall, he is quite a nice looking Hot Rod. I think he's desperately missing the Autobot symbol on his bonnet. It does look a little bit plain, but it's not something I'm going to moan about too much. Now, with the transformation, generally speaking, it all goes in quite well. However, one thing I would recommend is when you do transform him, just make sure that these two sections back here, before you try plugging this front section in, make sure the two sections in here are pushed in as far as they can, because I spent a good while earlier pushing this section down and nothing seemed to fit. And then I noticed that this wasn't in as far as it was. I just gave it a little push, clicked it in. It didn't click into place, but it pressed into place a little more firmly, and then all of a sudden this just went flush. And I was like, oh, okay. So clearly that was the missing step. So if you're having some trouble with him, just make sure you press these two sections in on the sides there. Just push them together and make sure they're locked into that back section, and that should mean that this then sits flush and clicks into place as it should. Storage for his sword, as you can probably imagine, isn't terribly inventive. There's obviously a hole in the sword, post on the top of the spoiler, and you can plug it in there, which looks a little bit odd, or you can actually plug it into the barrel of the spoiler, like so, which makes it a little bit more Lance-like and a little bit less top-heavy. But I don't know, I think that's the way I'll be displaying it if I display him in vehicle mode. So, not ideal, but, you know, I've seen worse. At least he's got weapon storage. That's something that will irk me a lot with my reviews, is if a figure doesn't have storage for their weapons in vehicle mode. But yeah, there he is. That is my quick review of Kingdom Core Class Hot Rod. I'm not going to give numerical scores, but I will say that I'm quite pleased with him. As I said, Hot Rod's not a character I'm particularly enamoured with, I will be really honest. But the last two versions of him that I've bought, this version and the as I said, the Rodimus Prime, I'm a big fan of both of them, I'll be really honest, so I'm glad I picked them both up. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate the views here. And if there's any particular figure that you want me to review, please pop it in the comments below. If I've got that figure, I shall give it a do over. I do tend to collect a lot of the Generation Selects guys, where I can. So if you want me to have a closer look at some of those, let me know. I do have a lot of the Siege stuff. Sorry, the War for Cybertron stuff, should I say. So it's Siege, Earthrise and Kingdom, so I've got all that stuff ready. And I do still have my Combiner Wars, Titan's Return, and Power of the Prime stuff lurking about as well. So if you want me to look at those, by all means let me know if there's something specific you want me to have a gander at. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.